Should I get a knife and use it for everyday carry and self-defense? That is this week's question of the week. I am al-Aziz, the owner and head instructor of Semper Fortis Jitsu here in San Antonio, Texas. And I'm going to tackle the question of the week this week. So, knives for everyday carry and using for self-defense. My thoughts on it and any kind of thoughts on knife fighting and what I have learned over the years through my 33 years in the military and through my many years of martial arts training. I would say, when you say, hey, should I everyday carry a knife? Absolutely. Absolutely. Like, why would you not? Like, I say, why would you not? But do check your local laws, because your local laws may dictate how long the blade can be, whether you can conceal it, whether it can be a fixed blade, a folding knife, whether it can be a switchblade, butterfly. Like, every state and locality has its own unique laws, and there's no way I can know all that. So you will have to check your own laws. But if you can legally do it, why would you not legally carry a knife? Now, life is easy here in Texas, because in Texas, if you want to walk around like a ancient samurai with a katana on your side, you can do it. Or if you want to walk around like Conan the Barbarian, with a big broadsword attached to your back, you can do that too. Matter of fact, I've seen my buddy Stomp go out there and have a big broadsword attached to his back. And you can ride on down the road and it's all good. People are going to look at you a little strange, but it's all good. Matter of fact, Stomp, my buddy Stomp, he sells custom knives here in Texas, and he'll walk into my school, and sometimes he'll have a big knife on his side. Sometimes he'll have an axe. And it's like, man, it works for him. And in Texas, you can do that. So Texas laws are very liberal when it comes to carrying knives. But wherever you're at watching this video, you're going to have to check your local laws to see, what the rules and regulations are, where you can carry it, what size, what the knife is can do. So check that before you do it. But if you can legally do it, I say, man, absolutely. I everyday carry this knife here. It's Chris Reeve, Sabenza 25. Had it for about 10, 12 years. And it's just a work knife. Matter of fact, Chris Reeve is a knife maker from South Africa. He's located in Idaho now. And he named the knife the Sabenza. Sabenza in the Zulu language means work. So I carry it around as a work knife. I open up envelopes, packages, boxes, as a last resort, a self-defense capability. But its primary purpose is work. And that leads into our topic of choosing your knife and what you want your knife for. Like, for me, this is a work knife. In a pinch, in a bad situation, it could also be used for self-defense, but primarily, it's just a work knife. And I'll talk about the reasons why. Like, in the military, we've done various studies on knives. And one of the studies that we did was, when you are engaged with an attacker, can you deploy your knife? And what we found is, whether you had a switchblade, a butterfly knife, any kind of folding knife like this, or I got this old switchblade. In 1989, I went to Toulon, France, and a guy named Renzo Bell something made this knife, Beltrain. And I picked it up. I thought it was really cool. But you push a little button, it flips open. But it's really a useless tool. I mean, other than it activates really quickly, it's it just can't do any work. And that's the problem with these knives. It's like, what's the advantage of the quickness of the way this opened? Or, when I can hand open this work knife, were that fraction of a second or a second or two going to make that much of a difference? What we found in the military is, once you're engaged with an opponent and, they have their hands on you and, you're grappling with them, that through our studies, you are not getting this knife out of your pocket, or a butterfly knife, or a gravity knife, or, any of these folding knives out of your pocket and then deploying them to be able to use. You know, we did numerous studies to show that, you know, basically while you're engaged, you know, one, you're trying to get in your pocket, you're getting it out, then you're trying to deploy it, and you end up losing the knife on the ground if you ever got the knife out. But through the numerous people that we ran through the study, not one was able to successfully, as they were engaged with one or more opponents, successfully deploy any of these folding knives, which is why the military issues fixed blade knives. And like when I was attached with Marines, United States Marines, they issued a K-bar. Like this, I ended up giving the K-bar I deployed to Iraq with to my son recently. This is an old Randall knife, model 18, and a lot of guys were using this in World War II, Korea, Vietnam. You don't see them as much anymore, other than, you know, as collector items. I mean, Randall's still in business, but, you know, the original founder, Bo Randall's not making, he's passed away. I think his grandson is making knives now for the company. But this isn't really practical for, you know, everyday carry. You can here in Texas. You know, it's like, oh, you want to carry a big knife like this on your side? You can do it. But in most states, you'll probably find that this would be frowned upon. And you're going to get some strange looks. You know, you walk around with a big knife like this. But what we know in the military is the advantages of the fixed blade are 100% advantageous over the folding knives. And the reason for that is, one, when you stab something, for example, one of the ways police investigators can determine who did the stabbing is to look at the hands of the suspects. Because now this Randall knife, just like the military K-bar, has this guard. You know, so like if I stabbed it into this table, this guard would make sure that my hand did not slip down the blade. Whereas, like say this Chris Reeve folding knife, if I stabbed it real hard in this table, yeah, I know somebody will be out there like, well, if you held it, you know, correctly, it wouldn't slide down. When you're fighting for your life, you won't be doing everything absolutely correctly. So you could stab something, it hits a sudden stop, and then especially if your hand's wet or blood, your hand could slide right on down the blade. And now you've opened up your hand, you know, your fingers. Now you got a serious injury and you're still in the fight. You know, it's like, man, now the use of your hand is no longer optimal. So definitely not designed for that. And you think, well, what would the situation be? Well, in your body, you know, you got collarbone, shoulder, ribs. You know, unlike TV, when somebody goes to stab you, if they hit a bone, it may go between the ribs, or it may stop, and that sudden stop could end up cutting you. Or, you know, however you're trying to deploy the device, this tool, you could end up cutting yourself. And most people that are involved in stabbings end up cutting their hands because they're using the wrong tool. So these guards are optimal. The other problem with these folding knives is there's a saying in the knife community, folding knives are half broke. And what they mean is the blade stops here and then it's attached to this frame. So especially like this is a pretty high quality knife, but that's its weakest point, this holding point. So maybe if you're stabbing up or stabbing down and somebody's got like a jacket on, they could have a thick Carhartt type jacket, or there's people out there wearing, you know, soft body armor. You know, that knife could break, you know, the locking mechanism could break and the knife fold over on your fingers. So less likely with a high quality knife, but how many people are out there getting these cheap gas station knives? They're like, it's just as good. No, it's not just as good. So if you're going to carry a folding knife, I would recommend getting a good quality folding knife and not, you know, the $5 one you can get at the gas station. So that's some of the disadvantages. the advantages of the fixed blade, like this is a Winkler knife. I got it as going away present at one of my commands. And the blade is attached and it's all one piece and it runs all the way to the end. You know, the same thing with this old Strider knife. You know, the blade runs all the way to the end. You know, so it's not going to break there. You know, it's not going to fold in on you. So, and what we found in our military studies was the only knives that the participants were able to actually deploy was the fixed blade knives. They were not able to deploy the folders when engaged with an adversary. So the fixed blade has all those advantages. You know, so you have to check your local laws, but just realize that the folding knife comes with problems, and they're not designed, you know, for the most part, you know, to be fighting knives. And that's why the military issues knives like these, you know. So when you're making your choice, that's a big consideration. Other thing is, you know, like knife fighting martial arts, they're out there. Do they work? I don't know. You know, like when I was attached to the Marine Corps unit, you know, the Marine Corps has a strategy of knife fighting, but I know like there's martial arts like Kali and you know, other fighting systems that teach knife fighting, but most likely none of those dudes have ever been in a knife fight. You know, like and when I say by a knife fight, I'm not saying you used a knife. You know, like stabbings are fairly common, but what's not common is your opponent has a knife, you have a knife, and you're dueling it out. Most people have not, you know, been in these fights. Theoretically they understand it, and you know, they can teach you some tactics that they theoretically think may work in a knife fight, but will they work? I don't know. It's almost like because there's so much mysticism in martial arts, which is disappointing, but it's always existed like this. Like, you know, I remember when MMA came along, I met this young man. He was in the military, and he was like, well, you know, people in my martial art, I forgot what he called his martial art, you know, they can't do MMA because they teach the one punch death punch, and you know, they would just kill everybody. And I'm like, really? You can just one punch kill a guy? He's like, yeah. I'm like, how many people have you killed so far with that one punch? He's like, well, nobody. I'm like, well, how about the guy that taught it to you? You know, that one punch, you know, how you do it? How many people he killed with it? He's like, well, I don't know. I'm like, oh, well, you're taking a great leap of faith. That, you know, this one punch death punch, like I've seen movies like that where, you know, like I think in Kill Bill at the end, you know, like she hits Bill with some cool punch and then like he takes like 4 or 5 steps and dies. It makes a great movie. But would I trust my life to this? So that's what I think about knife fighting martial arts. Maybe they're legit, but I'm suspecting most of these people teaching these programs ain't never been in a knife fight. And that means maybe it's not going to work. So that's my opinions on carrying knives. I recommend carrying them. I mean, why not? If it's legal for you to do it, I say, man, do it, you know. But check your local and state laws to see what they are, because they vary state to state drastically. You know, in Texas, you can carry anything you want. You know, where you're at, maybe not. So double check that. And then another thing with knives is, like I said, it's a good backup plan. You know, have it, you know, just in case. But, you know, like I can tell you, like if a guy pulls a knife on me, my response is not to pull a knife back on him. I'm going to approach it with superior firepower, because we're in Texas and you are allowed to have superior firepower. So there's very few situations where I could picture like somebody having a knife and me resorting to a knife. It's like, that doesn't sound like a good idea. You know, it's like, no, I'm going to approach that situation with superior firepower. But if you legally can't, then okay, well, you know, maybe you have to look at some other options. But that's my thoughts on the knives. Just check your local laws and realize the fixed blade is going to be a better fighting knife than the folding knives, because the folding knives, at the end of the day, are half broke And their real only advantage of a folding knife is that it's easier to conceal. So that's it for this week's Question of the Week. If you got a question for next week, feel free to fire a comment below. I'll probably be back in the gym with my gi on, but for today, I was like, man, I'll just pull my knives out here and have you at my kitchen table, and it'd be almost like an episode of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. All right, that's my dad joke for the week. Thank y'all for tuning in. Got a question for next week? Fire below. Ciao.